Here are famous quotes by Alain de Botton. Anyone who isn't embarrassed by who they were last year probably isn't learning enough. Do you love me enough that I may be weak with you? Everyone loves strength, but do you love me for my weakness? That is the real test. There is no such thing as work-life balance. Everything worth fighting for unbalances your life. Maturity, the confidence to have no opinions on many things. Everyone wants a better life, very few of us want to be better people. Intimacy is the capacity to be rather weird with someone, and finding that that's okay with them. The only people we can think of as normal are those we don't yet know very well. You normally have to be bashed about a bit by life to see the point of daffodils, sunsets, and uneventful nice days. We don't really learn anything properly until there is a problem, until we are in pain, until something fails to go as we had hoped. We suffer, therefore, we think. Sweetness is the opposite of machismo, which is everywhere, and I really don't get on with machismo. I'm interested in sensitivity, weakness, fear, and anxiety because I think that, at the end of the day, behind our masks, that's what we are. The only way to be happy is to realize how much depends on how you look at things. Forgiveness requires a sense that bad behavior is a sign of suffering rather than malice. Don't despair. Despair suggests you are in total control and know what is coming. You don't surrender to events with hope. The difference between hope and despair is a different way of telling stories from the same facts. I learned to stop fantasizing about the perfect job or the perfect relationship because they can actually be an excuse for not living. Though it may feel otherwise, enjoying life is no more dangerous than apprehending it with continuous anxiety and gloom. Work is most fulfilling when you're at the comfortable, exciting edge of not quite knowing what you are doing. A good half of the art of living is resilience. Work finally begins when the fear of doing nothing exceeds the fear of doing it badly. It is by finding out what something is not that one comes closest to understanding what it is. Every time we feel satisfied with what we have, we can be counted as rich, however little we may actually possess. We often lose our tempers not with those who are actually to blame, just with those who love us enough to forgive us our foul moods. There is always the option of being emotionally lazy, that is, of quoting. One of the best protections against disappointment is to have a lot going on. Feeling lost, crazy, and desperate belongs to a good life as much as optimism, certainty, and reason. We keep a special place in our hearts for people who refuse to be impressed by us. Envy, a confused, tangled guide to one's own ambitions. Mental health, having enough safe places in your mind for your thoughts to settle. There may be significant things to learn about people by looking at what annoys them most. Most of what makes a book good is that we are reading it at the right moment for us. I think people want to get married to end their emotional uncertainty. In a way, they want to end powerful feelings, or certainly the negative ones. Everyone returns us to a different sense of ourselves, for we become a little of who they think we are. True love is a lack of desire to check one's smartphone in another's presence. Forcing people to eat together is an effective way to promote tolerance. Our responses to the world are crucially molded by the company we keep, for we temper our curiosity to fit in with the expectations of others. Good books put a finger on emotions that are deeply our own, but that we could never have described on our own. Being content is perhaps no less easy than playing the violin well, and requires no less practice. The greatest difficulty of travel is that one is forced to take oneself along. The best cure for one's bad tendencies is to see them in action in another person. True respectability stems not from the will of the majority but from proper reasoning. It is striking how much more seriously we are likely to be taken after we have been dead a few centuries. Art holds out the promise of inner wholeness. People only get really interesting when they start to rattle the bars of their cages. Most anger stems from feelings of weakness, sadness, and fear, hard to remember when one is at the receiving end of its defiant roar. Once I began to consider everything as being of potential interest, objects release latent layers of value. As adults, we try to develop the character traits that would have rescued our parents. Never too late to learn some embarrassingly basic, stupidly obvious things about oneself. Behavior. Curiosity takes ignorance seriously and is confident enough to admit when it's in the dark. It is aware of not knowing, and then it sets out to do something about it. We should not feel embarrassed by our difficulties, only by our failure to grow anything beautiful from them. Unhappiness can stem from having only one perspective to play with. Dreams reveal we never quite get over anything. It's all still in there somewhere. We will cease to be angry once we cease to be so hopeful. Intuition is unconscious accumulated experience informing judgment in real time. Support us by subscribing to Possible for Sure and for more quotes.